$25 an hour for watching an empty diner in the middle of nowhere seemed too good to be true. As I pulled my rusty Honda into the cracked parking lot of Devil's Rest Diner, the neon sign flickering weakly against the vast New Mexico night, I realized it probably was. The job posting had been simple: overnight security guard needed, minimal duties, excellent pay for the right candidate. When I called the number, a gravelly voice had asked only two questions. Could I handle being alone? And did I believe in following instructions exactly as given? Desperate for money to help my sister through college, I'd answered yes to both. Now, sitting in the eerie glow of the diner's fluorescent lights, I wasn't so sure. The building squatted on Highway 285 like a wounded animal, its aluminum siding dented and weathered by decades of desert wind. Through the large windows I could see red vinyl booths and a counter that had probably been white once, but now showed the stains of countless coffee spills and cigarette burns. A single car sat in the lot besides mine, an ancient pickup truck that looked like it hadn't moved in years. My phone buzzed. A text from Elena. First night at the new job. Don't let the desert weirdos get you, big brother. I smiled despite my nerves. Elena's tuition was due in 2 weeks, and this job would cover it with money left over. Whatever strangeness awaited me inside, I could handle it for her sake. The front door chimed as I entered, a melodic sound that seemed oddly cheerful in the oppressive atmosphere. The interior smelled of old grease and something else, something organic and unpleasant that reminded me of roadkill left too long in the sun. The air conditioning wheezed and rattled, fighting a losing battle against the desert heat that seemed to seep through the walls. You must be Carlos. The voice came from behind the counter, where a woman emerged from what I assumed was the kitchen. She was perhaps 60, with steel gray hair pulled back in a severe bun and eyes the color of storm clouds. Her name tag read Dolores, in faded letters. Yes, ma'am. Carlos Martinez. I extended my hand, but she didn't take it. Good. I'm the day manager. You'll be working alone from midnight to 6 a.m. Simple enough job, but there are rules. She fixed me with a stare that made my skin crawl. Important rules that must be followed exactly. I nodded, waiting for her to continue. First rule: never serve anyone who orders the special. We don't have a special. Never have. Never will. If someone asks for it, tell them we're out, and offer them coffee instead. Okay, I said slowly. What if they insist? They won't insist once you tell them we're out. Trust me. Her tone suggested the topic was closed. Second rule: if you hear music coming from the kitchen, don't investigate. Lock the front door and wait it out. The music will stop eventually. What kind of music? Dolores ignored the question. Third rule, most important: if anyone comes in asking about Route 47, tell them it doesn't exist. Under no circumstances should you give directions to Route 47. But Route 47 does exist, I said. It's about 10 miles north of here. Her eyes went cold. No, it doesn't. Not anymore. Not at night. She pulled an envelope from her apron pocket. Here's your advance. $200 for completing your first shift. You'll get the same every night for the first week. The money felt real enough in my hands. Crisp bills that would go straight toward Elena's tuition. What exactly am I guarding against? Wrong question, Dolores said, untying her apron. Right question is, what are you keeping in? She hung the apron on a hook behind the counter. Coffee's fresh, register's balanced, and there's leftover pie in the cooler if you get hungry. Just remember the rules. She was halfway to the door when she paused. Oh, and Carlos? The phone in the back office rings sometimes. Old wiring, probably. Don't answer it. Then she was gone, leaving me alone in the humming fluorescence of Devil's Rest Diner. The first few hours passed quietly. I familiarized myself with the layout: dining area, counter, kitchen, and a small office in the back with a desk, filing cabinet, and an ancient rotary phone that looked like it belonged in a museum. The cooler yielded a surprisingly decent slice of apple pie, and the coffee was strong enough to strip paint. At 2:30 a.m., my first customer arrived. The man who entered looked like he'd stepped out of a 1950s photograph. Perfectly pressed suit, slicked back hair, and skin so pale it seemed to glow under the fluorescent lights. He sat at the counter, folding his hands neatly in front of him. "Evening," he said, his voice carrying a slight accent I couldn't place. "I'd like to order the special, please." My stomach tightened. "I'm sorry, sir, but we're out of the special tonight. Can I offer you some coffee instead?" He tilted his head, studying me with eyes that seemed too dark, too deep. "Out of the special? That's unusual. I've been coming here for years, and you've never been out of the special. Would you like some coffee?" I repeated, my mouth suddenly dry. For a long moment, he didn't respond. Then he smiled, revealing teeth that were perfectly straight and unnaturally white. "Coffee would be lovely, thank you." I poured him a cup with shaking hands. He sipped it delicately, never breaking eye contact. "You're new," he observed. "First night, I see. And Dolores trained you well, I trust?" I nodded. not trusting my voice. Good. Dolores is thorough in her instructions. Tell me, what do you know about this place? It's a diner, I said lamely. He chuckled, a sound like wind through dry leaves. Yes, it is that, but it's also much more. This diner sits on what you might call a crossroads, not of highways, you understand, but of other things, older things. I don't understand. Of course you don't, but you will in time. He finished his coffee and placed a $5 bill on the counter. Keep the change. And Carlos? I hadn't told him my name. Follow the rules. They exist for good reason. He stood and walked toward the door, then paused. Oh, and when the phone rings, you might want to reconsider Dolores's advice. Sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is ignore a warning. Then he was gone, leaving only the lingering scent of something cold and metallic. I stood frozen for several minutes, trying to process what had just happened. The man's words echoed in my mind. A crossroads of older things. What did that mean? And how had he known my name? The phone in the back office began to ring. I stared toward the sound, remembering Dolores's words. Old wiring, she'd said. Don't answer it. But the man's parting comment nagged at me. Sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is ignore a warning. The ringing continued, insistent and somehow urgent. Against my better judgment, I found myself walking toward the office. The rotary phone sat on the desk, its brass fixtures tarnished with age. Each ring seemed to vibrate through my bones. I lifted the receiver. Static filled my ear, punctuated by what sounded like distant voices speaking in a language I didn't recognize. Then cutting through the interference came a voice I knew. Carlos, can you hear me? Elena? My sister's voice, but wrong somehow. Strained, frightened. Elena, where are you? I'm lost, Carlos. I took Route 47 like you told me, but it doesn't go where it's supposed to. The road just keeps going and I can't find my way back. I never told you to take Route 47, I said, confusion mixing with growing dread. Elena, where are you really? Please, Carlos, I need help. I've been driving for hours and I keep seeing the same landmarks over and over. It's like the road is looping back on itself, and there are things in the desert, things watching me. Elena, this isn't real. You're at college, remember? In your dorm room, probably studying for your biology exam. No, her voice rose to near panic. I'm here. I'm on Route 47 and I can't get out. You have to help me. You have to tell people how to find me. The line went dead. I stood holding the receiver, my mind reeling. Elena was safe at college, 300 miles away. I'd talked to her just yesterday about her upcoming exams. This had to be some kind of cruel prank, but who would do such a thing? And how had they known about Route 47? The front door chimed, and I quickly hung up the phone. A woman entered, middle-aged with worry lines etched deep around her eyes. She approached the counter hesitantly. Excuse me, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm looking for my daughter. She was supposed to drive home from college today, but she never arrived. Her last text mentioned stopping for directions. I was wondering, do you know how to get to Route 47? My blood turned to ice. Route 47 doesn't exist, I said automatically, the words feeling foreign on my tongue. But it does, she insisted. It's on the map, right here. She pulled out her phone, showing me a GPS route that clearly marked Route 47 running north from the highway. My daughter said she was going to take it as a shortcut. I stared at the phone screen. There it was, plain as day. Route 47, a thin line cutting through empty desert. But Dolores had been adamant. Route 47 doesn't exist. Not anymore. Not at night. Ma'am, I said carefully, I think you might be mistaken. There's no Route 47 around here. Her face crumpled, but she said, she texted me. Oh God, where is she? She stumbled out of the diner, leaving me alone with my racing thoughts. The phone call, the GPS route, the desperate mother. It was all connected somehow to Dolores's rules. But what was really happening on Route 47? At 4 a.m., music began playing in the kitchen. It started softly, barely audible over the hum of the air conditioning, a melody that seemed familiar yet wrong, like a lullaby played in a minor key. As it grew louder, I recognized it as mariachi music, but distorted, the instruments slightly out of tune and the rhythm just off enough to be unsettling. Following Dolores's instructions, I locked the front door and settled in to wait it out. But as the music continued, curiosity began to override caution. What was back there? Why wasn't I supposed to investigate? The melody shifted, becoming something sadder, more plaintive. I found myself drawn toward the kitchen, despite every instinct screaming at me to stay put. Through the service window, I could see nothing but darkness beyond the reach of the dining area's lights. Then I heard voices. They were singing along with the music, multiple voices harmonizing in Spanish. I recognized some of the words: casa, familia, perdido, home, family, lost. The song seemed to be about someone trying to find their way back to people they loved. Unable to resist, I approached the kitchen door. It was slightly ajar, revealing only a sliver of the interior. The music was definitely coming from inside, along with the voices, but when I peered through the crack, I saw only empty counters and cold grills. Carlos, I spun around. A man stood in the dining area, though I was certain the front door was still locked. He was elderly, with kind eyes and weathered hands that spoke of a lifetime of hard work. He wore the simple clothes of a farm laborer and looked somehow familiar. Abuelo? The word slipped out before I could stop it. My grandfather had died when I was 12, but this man looked exactly like him. Mijo, he said, using the pet name he'd always called me. You shouldn't be here, but I work here. I'm the night guard. He shook his head sadly. This place is not for the living, Carlos. It's a way station for souls who have lost their path. They come here seeking direction, seeking peace, but some get trapped. I don't understand. Route 47, he said. It's not a road anymore, mijo. It's a tear in the world, a place where the lost go and can't return. The diner feeds on their desperation, grows stronger with each soul that becomes trapped. The music in the kitchen grew louder, more urgent. Elena, I whispered. Is Elena really trapped there? My grandfather's expression grew pained. She was never trapped, mijo. But if you keep working here, if you keep following their rules, eventually they'll use your voice to call her, and then she will be lost. What do I do? Break the rules. All of them. The diner's power comes from the rituals, the patterns. Disrupt them, and you can free the souls trapped here. But Dolores said, Dolores is not who you think she is. She's been the day manager here for 40 years, Carlos. She doesn't age because she's not alive. None of the regulars are. They're all trapped souls, playing their roles to keep the diner functioning. The truth hit me like a physical blow. The pale man with the perfect teeth, the worried mother, even my grandfather. They were all part of the diner's web, drawing in new victims to replace those who eventually escaped or were consumed entirely. How do I break the rules? Serve the special, let the music play, give directions to Route 47, but be careful, mijo. The diner won't give up its power easily. He began to fade, becoming translucent in the fluorescent light. Wait, I called out, but he was already gone. The music in the kitchen suddenly stopped, leaving behind a silence so complete it seemed to press against my eardrums. I stood alone in the dining area trying to process everything I'd learned. If my grandfather was right, then every rule I'd been given was designed to maintain the diner's supernatural prison. The front door chimed. The pale man from earlier stood in the entrance, no longer bothering to maintain his human facade. His skin was gray and mottled, his eyes completely black, and when he smiled, his teeth were sharp as razors. The old man told you, didn't he said, his voice now carrying the sound of grinding bone. They always do eventually, the family members, trying to save their precious living relatives. What are you? I'm what happens when someone works here too long. I used to be like you, Carlos. I had people I was trying to help, debts to pay, a future to secure. But the diner takes and takes until there's nothing left but hunger. I won't let that happen. He laughed, a sound like breaking glass. You think you have a choice? You've already started changing. Haven't you noticed how the coffee tastes different now? How the air feels thicker? That's the diner getting into your blood. I realized he was right. The coffee did taste different, richer, more complex, with an underlying flavor I couldn't identify. And the air did feel heavier, as if it were slowly becoming more solid. What do you want from me? Follow the rules. Do your job. In a few weeks, maybe a month, you'll stop aging. You'll stop needing sleep, stop feeling hunger for anything but the energy of lost souls. It's not so bad, really. Eternal existence has its perks. And if I refuse? His expression darkened. Then you'll learn why the rules exist. The diner has other ways of keeping its employees in line. As if summoned by his words, the kitchen door swung open. The mariachi music began again, but this time, it was accompanied by screaming. Human voices raised in agony and terror, harmonizing with the cheerful melody in a symphony of suffering. That's your choice, the pale man said. Join us willingly, or become part of the music. He turned and walked out, leaving me alone with the horrible sounds from the kitchen. I had to act fast. If my grandfather was right about breaking the rules, then I needed to do it before the diner's influence over me became too strong. Already I could feel something changing in my perception, a growing sense that maybe eternal servitude wouldn't be so terrible after all. The next customer who entered was a young man, maybe 25, with desperate eyes and the hollow look of someone who'd been driving too long. Please, he said, approaching the counter. I need directions to Route 47. My GPS says it should be around here, but I can't find it. Every instinct screamed at me to tell him it didn't exist, to offer him coffee and send him on his way. But instead, I reached under the counter and pulled out a map I hadn't noticed before. It showed Route 47 clearly, a winding road that led deep into the desert. It's about 10 miles north, I said, my voice shaking, but I wouldn't recommend traveling it at night. The young man's face lit up with relief. Thank you so much. I've been looking for hours. As he turned to leave, I saw something that made my blood freeze. For just a moment, in the reflection of the window, I saw not a living person, but a translucent figure, his face twisted with confusion and fear. Another trapped soul, playing out his role in the diner's eternal theater. But by giving him directions, had I freed him or condemned him further? The answer came when he reached the door. Instead of leaving, he turned back to me, and for the first time, his expression was clear and grateful. "Thank you," he said, and his voice carried the weight of genuine emotion. "I can go home now." He stepped through the door and simply vanished, leaving behind only a sense of peace. One rule broken, two to go. The pale man returned immediately, his face contorted with rage. "What have you done?" I gave him directions. "You've upset the balance. The diner needs those souls to maintain its existence." "Good," I said, surprised by my own courage. He lunged at me, but instead of physical contact, he seemed to pass right through me. I felt a bone-deep cold and a moment of overwhelming despair, but then he was gone, leaving me gasping but unharmed. The next test came when a woman entered asking for the special. She was clearly one of the trapped souls. Her 1940s clothing and the way she moved marked her as another phantom playing her eternal role. But when I served her a plate of eggs and bacon from the kitchen, calling it the special, she smiled with genuine joy. "I haven't had a real meal in so long," she said, and as she ate, she became more solid, more real. By the time she finished, she looked like a living person again. "How do I get home?" she asked. "Any way you choose," I told her. "You're free now." She walked to the door, paused to look back with tears in her eyes, and then stepped outside and dissolved into sparkling motes of light that drifted upward into the night sky. The diner shook around me, the fluorescent lights flickering and the windows rattling in their frames. Something was very angry. The music in the kitchen grew deafeningly loud, and this time I didn't lock the door. I marched straight into the kitchen, ready to face whatever was there. What I found was a room full of ghosts. They sat at tables that existed only in their memory, playing instruments that cast no shadows, singing songs of home and loss. Men and women from different eras, all trapped in this liminal space between life and death. But as the music played, I could see the chains that bound them, threads of dark energy connecting each spirit to the diner itself. "Let them go," I said to the empty air. "We can't," came a chorus of voices. "We don't know how." "Then I'll show you." I walked to the center of the room and began pulling at the dark threads. They burned my hands like ice, but I didn't stop. One by one, the connections severed, and one by one, the ghosts looked up in amazement as they realized they were free. They didn't all choose to leave immediately. Some lingered to help me free others, while some simply faded away with expressions of peaceful gratitude. But eventually, the kitchen fell silent, except for the normal sounds of appliances. The diner gave one final, violent shudder, and then went still. Dolores appeared in the kitchen doorway, but she no longer looked human. Her skin was bark-like, her eyes were hollow sockets, and when she spoke, it was with the voice of something ancient and hungry. "You have no idea what you've done," she said. "This place has existed for over a century, providing a service to lost souls. Now they'll wander forever with no guidance." "They're free to find their own way," I replied. "That's better than being trapped." "Free?" she laughed, a sound like branches breaking. "They'll be consumed by darker things than this diner ever was. At least here they had purpose. Their purpose was to be food for this place, and your purpose was to be their shepherd. You could have guided countless souls to peace. Instead, you've condemned them to chaos." "Maybe," I said, "but that's their choice to make." Dolores began to crumble, literally falling apart like dry wood. "The diner will find a new location," she said as pieces of her scattered across the floor. "A new manager, a new night guard. The hunger never truly dies." Then she was gone, leaving only a pile of dust that smelled like old paper and forgotten dreams. I walked back into the dining area. The diner looked ordinary now, just a rundown restaurant in the middle of nowhere. The oppressive atmosphere was gone, replaced by the simple emptiness of an abandoned building. My phone had signal again. I called Elena, needing to hear her voice. "Carlos, it's like 3 in the morning. Is everything okay?" "I'm fine," I said, relief flooding through me. "I just wanted to make sure you were all right." "I'm good, studying for my biology exam, like I told you." "Hey, weird question, but have you ever heard of Route 47? I had the strangest dream about getting lost on it." "No," I said firmly. "There's no Route 47, not anymore." After we hung up, I sat in the diner until dawn, thinking about what had happened. When the sun finally rose, painting the desert in shades of gold and red, I walked outside and looked back at Devil's Rest Diner. It was gone. Where the building had stood, there was only empty desert, marked by a circle of scorched earth and a few pieces of broken concrete. Even my car was parked on the side of the highway. As if I'd never pulled into a parking lot at all, I found an envelope in my pocket containing $200 just as Dolores had promised. But instead of feeling like payment, it felt like compensation for services rendered to forces beyond my understanding. I drove home as the sun climbed higher, leaving the desert and its secrets behind. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear mariachi music playing softly in the distance, and I wonder if the diner really is gone, or if it's just moved on to claim new souls in some other lonely stretch of highway. Elena graduated with honors and never mentioned Route 47 again. I took a job at a garage in town, working normal hours under normal fluorescent lights, serving normal people with normal problems. But I kept the $200 as a reminder. Evil often wears the mask of opportunity, and the most dangerous traps are the ones that promise to solve all your problems for a price that seems too good to be true, because sometimes they are.